Hey, what's up, everybody, and I hope you're having a good day. In today's gaming news dose, though, we are going to talk about some of the ridiculousness that's surrounded Starfield over the last few weeks. This has honestly been absurd. It's probably one of the most overblown topics that I've seen in a very long time, all for the sake of Discourse. But Bethesda is starting to shut down some of that speculation, and I'll explain why today. Also, Nintendo and Pokemon might be changing things up here in the future, or at the very least, there's quote-unquote conversations. Yeah, I'll explain in due time in today's news dose. To get things started off, though, Xbox Game Pass just revealed its second wave of August games, which includes 5 different titles, and this is actually a pretty good lineup, all things considered. You can see here it includes Firewatch, Gris, Sea of Stars, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then today they just launched Everspace 2. So there's actually 3 day one releases here. Yeah, absolutely, just gotta love it. And then the other 2 are high quality as well. I would recommend both Firewatch and Gris. Firewatch is kind of this narrative-driven walking simulator where you play as a fire lookout in the wilderness of Wyoming and quickly find yourself in the midst of a thrilling mystery. And then Gris, this is a stunning and emotional 2D platformer. Definitely a beautiful game to behold. Both of these games are a little on the shorter side of things, but they are both excellent in their own ways, and they're very well worth your time. I'd highly recommend them. But these other 3 games, this is where things start to get exciting. Those day one releases. Again, you just absolutely gotta love it. And that starts off today with Everspace 2. Now, this is a rather interesting release because Everspace 2 is a lot different than the first game. The first game was a roguelike third-person space shooter with some looter-shooter elements, and while yes, the sequel maintains a similar playstyle, they shifted away from being a roguelike to this more full open-world RPG. They explained that they didn't originally have the budget to do a game like this, but because of the first game's success, and also because of Xbox Game Pass, interestingly enough, they now have that budget to truly deliver what they want. In their own words, they said, ironically, not only is Game Pass good for Xbox and PC users, it's also good for players on other platforms. Everyone gets a better game because of Xbox Game Pass. The extra funding helps us stay independent, and we can deliver the game when we think it's ready. And it is. So this is just the latest game to credit Xbox Game Pass. I think sometimes fans forget that these developers do get nice payouts for launching into Game Pass, and that's especially beneficial when it's multi-platform. And this studio here is showing you exactly how that can be beneficial for an independent developer. Now, if you are interested in Everspace, though, and if you're kind of wondering about its quality, well, it has been available on Steam for a little while now, and it currently has an 87% approval rating, which is a very, very good sign. Now, Sea of Stars, though, this one's also heading over to Game Pass on August 29th. We have talked about this game quite extensively in the past, but I mean, come on, this game looks gorgeous. It's a retro JRPG inspired by Chrono Trigger, which, if that hasn't already got your attention, it's also developed by the same studio that brought us The Messenger, which is also a great game. I definitely recommend checking that one out. So there's a lot of potential with Sea of Stars. This is legitimately one of the most anticipated independent games of 2023, and yeah, it's launching directly into Xbox Game Pass. Now, interestingly, it is also launching into PlayStation Plus if you have that as well, so this game is reaching far and wide. Now let's just kind of hope that it plays as good as it looks. Overall, though, I'd say that this has quietly been a pretty good month for Xbox Game Pass. You know, they just got Quake 2, Everspace 2 launched today, and then a little bit later on this month, Sea of Stars. These might not necessarily be big AAA games. That is for September, but in the meantime, this is a lot of interesting games to play. Moving on, though, Gamescom's opening night live event is set for next week on August 22nd, and the hype really has started to take off, but Jeff Keighley is now attempting to better set expectations. This is ultimately the smart play to make here, that way fans don't leave disappointed. And according to what he's saying here, fans shouldn't expect a ton of new game announcements. You can check it out here where he said, it's going to be an exciting show with new looks at many announced upcoming games like Alan Wake 2 and Black Myth Wukong. This year's opening night live event is less about announcing brand new projects and more about giving fan updates on some of the biggest games due out over the next year. Now, I think that that's perfectly fine. That's about what I've come to expect from Gamescom. You have the E3 Gamers Holiday Month where a ton of new games are announced, and then you have Gamescom where they can kind of follow up with various updates, new gameplay, and more concrete release dates. I'm good with that personally, and I mean, there's a lot of games that still need some updates. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that there won't be any surprises, though. There probably will be a few here and there, but just don't go in expecting new announcement after new announcement after new announcement. Now, I'll tell you one thing that I didn't expect, though, and looking back on it, I probably should have. Starfield is now an Xbox game, which means your typical suspects will spread their quote-unquote concern online. This is your typical behavior that we see with exclusives across the board. We all know it. It's not inconspicuous. It's bad actors being bad actors. But over the last couple weeks, some people have tried to raise the alarm bells over Starfield's marketing out of all things, which honestly is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, they just recently showcased 45 minutes of Starfield at its very own direct. How many other games does this? I mean, every once in a while, Nintendo does big overviews for their games, but outside of Nintendo, you don't typically see 45-minute long directs for a single game. How much does people really want to see? But again, that's the thing. There's some concern trolling going on right now, and as long as we're kind of clear on that, we can kind of move on. But Bethesda is starting to prove those naysayers wrong. There was somebody on Twitter online expressing their concern with Starfield not being gold yet, and they talked about its lack of marketing, in which Pete Hines bluntly responded, "Take a deep breath. I have an amazing team. We know what we're doing." And since he's made that remark, some very interesting things have happened online, almost as if Bethesda, knows what they're doing. You know, a company that's launched some of the most successful RPGs ever made, they might know a thing or two. So the first thing is that there's a rumor going around that Microsoft and Bethesda are holding an interactive launch event for Starfield that they're apparently very excited about. Now, this is only a rumor for the time being. This has yet to be confirmed, but there has been some questions about what this interactive launch will look like. I'm kind of curious about that as well, but if any of this is true, then we'll likely start to hear about it rather soon. Starfield will have a presence at Gamescom, so maybe they talk about it there. We'll see about that. But for right now, Bethesda is starting to ramp up Starfield's marketing in a few different ways. A lot of people are starting to report that they've been getting a ton of ads for Starfield on different social media websites, YouTube, TikTok, and places like that. And in fact, you might have seen a Starfield ad when clicking on this video. I have already seen a few of my viewers tell me they have, and actually let me know in the comments below if you have as well. Bethesda is also pushing out a lot of merchandise across various companies. They're selling gaming chairs. They partnered up with AMD for a special Starfield graphics card. They're selling clothes, and the list just kind of goes on and on. They even have a limited edition drink, and then Game Pass. I mean, it's going to be plastered all over Xbox Game Pass's marketing, which includes 25+ million subscribers. The marketing is certainly there. Like I said, this topic has always been ridiculous. I remember a very similar discussion with Zelda Tears of the Kingdom just earlier this year. There was all this concern that Zelda hadn't shown enough gameplay, and then it comes out and bam, it sells 19 million copies in like a month and a half. It's almost like people know about these big games, and well, Starfield, it's a big game, and it has a dedicated community thanks to Bethesda's reputation, especially over on PC, where it has consistently been among the top 10 best sellers well ahead of its official release. For that matter, think about Baldur's Gate 3. Did you see a ton of marketing for it? Absolutely not. But hey, it had 800,000 concurrent players for its opening weekend. I mean, are we suddenly concerned about Spider-Man 2 because it hasn't shown 45 minutes of gameplay? Because, well, Starfield has. See what I'm saying here? There's problems with this argument. It just doesn't really make a lot of sense, but I digress. There was one other concern that popped up yesterday, and that was in regards to Starfield's reviews. There was a rumor going around that review codes wasn't going out until September 1st, just before its official launch. And a lot of people tend to take that type of stuff as a bad sign. However, this information was wrong. Tom Henderson, the wonderful leaker that he is, quickly corrected this rumor by letting rabid fans know that review codes, in fact, go out later this week. Thursday right now is what I'm hearing, but there you go. nothing to be concerned about. By this point, I'm just kind of wondering what's going to be the next Discourse that we hear about. That goalpost, man, it just keeps moving. But we'll see what happens with this game. It really is a massive title. I mean, we've seen open world games before, but Starfield, I mean, this is more like an open universe game by this point. It's probably one of the most ambitious games that we've ever seen, and hey, it won't be much longer before we have it in our hands ourselves. Let's go and switch gears here for a moment, though, and talk about a franchise that's near and dear to my heart, Pokemon. Now, I think some of you all have probably picked up on this by this point, but Scarlet and Violet has been, we'll just say, a little frustrating for me. And I think a lot of gamers share my view on this. While I do think that they're great games in terms of gameplay, they're a lot of fun. I like the new Pokemon. I like its world. But it just feels like there's a lot of lost potential here because all of its performance issues, and that's the disappointing part. It's frankly unacceptable, and they still haven't fixed it. That's the big problem for me, the lack of transparency and the fact that they haven't fixed it and it's almost been out for a year. But you have to kind of wonder, what's next for the Pokemon franchise? Can the Pokemon Company ensure future titles don't launch with the same issues? Well, comicbook.com did all of us fans a favor and asked the COO of the Pokemon Company about this, and this was his response here. I think in general, if you look at the past, the path we've taken up until now has been this constant release, always regularly releasing products on a fairly fixed kind of cadence, you might say. Always having these products able to be introduced and new experiences for our customers, and that's how we've operated up until now. I think we're still operating in that way, but there's more and more conversations as the development environments change about how we can continue to do this while making sure that we're ensuring really quality products are also being introduced. So apparently, according to this, they're now having internal conversations about how they can ensure high-quality releases in the future while also maintaining regular output. So based on this statement here, it doesn't really sound like they're going to slow down development, which might actually be the key issue. I know a lot of people like to go at Game Freak and poke fun at them, but I mean, they're trying to pump these games out, and it's been increasingly difficult for them as technology has gotten to be more complex. This is no longer the Game Boy that we're talking about. We're talking about a big open-world game with 3D models. That's going to take more time and more resources than what they used to with those old Game Boy games. Now, the Switch 2, that might theoretically help. Sure, there will be higher expectations, but at the same time, it's likely to handle their open-world games with less performance problems, which is kind of your issue with Scarlet and Violet. Now, will it be the best-looking game on a Switch 2? Probably not, but that takes us back to the original topic. How would they go about ensuring that quality on such a tight schedule? And I think really what they have to do is increase their resources, maybe even quite dramatically. I mean, we've seen that a lot across the game industry as, games have become more demanding. Some games now take like 2,000 plus developers and multiple studios. So I think with all the money that the Pokemon Company makes, that might be an investment that they need to make. If they're not willing to slow down development, they'll need to increase their resources and maybe get Game Freak some help with more studios. Let's go and take a look at the poll of the day, though. We're asked you all, do you think Xbox should ditch their Xbox Series S parity clause to no longer include local split screen parity? And yeah, wow, okay, so a lot of you all actually did say yes here. 63% said yes, while 26% said no. And you know what? I'm with you on this one. Now, I completely understand that this would be a bad look for Xbox Online, but I'd say that in the real world, I don't think that most people would actually be all that bothered by something like this. Local split screen is a very niche feature when it comes to modern games, and as long as they're upfront about it, that the Xbox Series S might not always get split screen, whereas Xbox Series X can, then I think that would be okay. It is a complex situation, though, and that's kind of the problem here, because this is several years into the generation, and a lot of people have already bought the Xbox Series S, so they could lose some trust with their fan base. So, it is a complicated situation, but again, I just think with it being a niche feature, and if it really is causing legitimate problems with their releases in the detriment of the Xbox Series X, I think that at the very least they should consider it. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget to bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support this channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.